Unmatched is famous for having an extensive roster of playable characters, but with so many matchups available, it is extremely difficult to play them all. In this series, we will be analyzing a variety of matchups in detail and hopefully discover some hidden gems. Join me as we explore the latest matchup of the month. If you're a fan of the channel, consider supporting me on Patreon. For as little as $1 per month, you can help me continue to bring you premier unmatched content. Unlock exclusive rewards by becoming a patron today.
What's up guys, Zero Skater here, and we are back with another matchup of the month for September, this time featuring Bullseye versus the T-Rex. And this is going to be an explosive match, I'm sure, so I cannot wait to get into it. If you missed the last episode, that was Sherlock versus Sattler, and make sure you check that one out as well. And I hope you guys are enjoying these videos because I'm having a blast making them. And before we get into it real quick, I want to shout out Hat Chowder for the awesome What Happened merch. If you want to find your own, you can find it on TeePublic. Just look up Hat Chowder. I'll leave a link in the description below if you want to get your own. But before we get into the video, as always guys, be sure to attack that like button if you enjoy, and subscribe for more unmatched content. And with that said, let's not wait any longer. We'll jump on over and check out Bullseye versus the T-Rex. Alright, so we're back on Vorpal board as always to check out Bullseye here as the first fighter for matchup of the month. And real quick, we'll just go over Bullseye's deck and then we'll talk a little bit about what Bullseye's general strategy is. So Bullseye is a solo fighter with only 14 health, that's pretty low. He's moved 2, and he is ranged, but the cool thing is his ability says he can attack from 5 spaces away, ignoring zones. So as long as you're within 5 spaces, you can always attack your opponent, which means it's very difficult for them to get out of range on most maps because there's oftentimes a central spot on a map where Bullseye can attack every single space on the whole map, regardless of where your opponent runs. So you really can't run away from Bullseye. Makes him very aggressive of a fighter and pretty tricky to play against in certain matchups. So let's go over his deck real quick. This I Never Miss, red 3, you can boost it during combat. If you choose to boost it, then you can get big damage. Otherwise, if you don't, then you can draw a card to get some card draw and keep up some pressure. So it's a cool choice between damage and card draw. The next one, I Plan to Be here. Basically, if you are in your same starting space that you started your turn in, it's a 5 instead of a 2. So it's similar to a momentous shift, but opposite conditions where shift triggers if you've moved, this triggers if you have not moved. But having a 2 that bumps to a 5 is very strong. The next card for my next trick, a red 2. After combat, you can move him up to 1 space, draw a card, gain an action. So it's really good to just knock a defense card out of your opponent's hand, basically for free, because then you can reposition yourself a little bit if you need to, but you also get to draw and gain an action to make up for this card that you played, whereas they wasted one of their defense cards against just a 2. So it's a very good combo card. It makes for a lot of mind games with Bullseye, but it's actually, I think, one of his strongest cards in the deck. The next card, World's Greatest Assassin. So immediately, if you've already won a combat this turn, you ignore the value of your opponent's card. And being a printed 4 value is very, very strong to ignore an opponent's value. That's huge damage against anything but a feint, and even if feinted, it's still 2 damage because it's a printed 4. So this card's incredibly powerful, and it's the first payoff card that we're going to see for Bullseye winning a combat previously in the turn. So something like I Plan to Be here, as long as it's not feinted, is likely to win a combat, and I Never Miss is likely to win regardless because it will automatically win over a feint for 1 damage, and if it's not a feint, if it's something like a skirmish or a big value defense, you can often boost this card up really high to hit over that and win the combat. So that makes the follow-up from World's Greatest Assassin incredibly strong. The next card, payoff card we're going to see is I'm Better and I'll Prove It. So it's a purple 2. During combat, if you've already won a combat this turn, same condition as the previous card, this card's value becomes a 6 instead. So a 2 that bumps to a 6, again, very strong. So it's interesting because if your opponent is suspecting this 4 value assassin, they're not going to want to defend if they don't have a feint because their card value is going to be ignored anyways, so they'll just take it. But if they take a 6, I mean, that's an even bigger punish. So a lot of mind games there. The next card, it's the last payoff card, combat card anyways, for winning a combat. It's not nearly as good, but immediately, if you've already won a combat this turn, your opponent discards a card. It's important to note that the opponent gets to choose what card they discard, which means this card is much less powerful than something like an ambush, where it's a random discard, because they're just going to ditch the worst card in their hand, like a regroup or whatever card they don't need, given the situation. So it's not nearly as good as random, but still sometimes discards can help with hand advantage and keeping up the pressure and the tempo of the game. So it's an okay card. Important to note too that it is a 3 boost value, so if you use this to boost I Never Miss, bumps it up to a 6, that's very strong. And then Arrogant but Effective, 2 value versatile after combat. You're considered to have won the combat even if you didn't technically win, and then you get to move Bullseye up to 2 spaces. So it's a little bit of movement to reposition yourself in a better spot, and it also means you have won that previous combat. So if you first action attack with Arrogant, no matter what they defend with, as long as this card effect is not canceled, you will have been considered to win, and then that will trigger your good follow-up attacks. Then Ricochet, 3 value versatile. After combat, if the opposing fighter was not defeated, you deal 1 damage to a fighter in the opposing fighter's zone. So this card is very good for pinging off 1 health sidekicks. It's also going to just give extra auto damage onto the hero if you attack them with this, or if you defend with this. So Ricochet is a pretty versatile card for just some extra auto damage here and there. And then Feint, you have only 2 copies of Feint in this deck versus your standard set of 3, but 2 is better than none, so it's good to see it in the deck. You know what it does already, cancels all the effects of your opponent's card, versatile 2. Then Master Strategist, versatile 3. After combat, move Bullseye 4 spaces, and he may move through opposing fighters. So pretty good movement ability here, but important to note that they have to move exactly 4 spaces, and that it needs to be, it's kind of a weird card with the ruling, but it needs to be 4 unique spaces that he moves through. He cannot re-enter a space that he previously moved into, so you cannot do something like move forward 1, back 1, forward 1, back 1 to stay in the same spot, even though that would have been 1, 2, 3, 4 spaces of movement. You're re-entering spaces that you had already previously been in. So it has to be 4 unique spaces. It's a very weird card, but it's still pretty good for getting out of pins and the like. And the next card is very similar, Tactical Retreat. It's a blue 3, so it's not, you can't attack with it, but after combat you put Bullseye in a space that shares no zones with his current space. So you have to go to a new zone essentially, but other than that restriction, you can warp anywhere on the map. So it's a really good card for repositioning. If your opponent gets up to you, they attack you, you use this, you warp 5 spaces away so that you're still in range to attack them with your ability, but you're quite a distance away, so if they want to reach you on their following turn after you bombard them with attacks, they're going to have to maneuver and boost just to catch up with you. So this is a great positioning tool. And then probably the most important card in the deck is Study the Target. It's the only scheme in the deck, and you draw 2, but you never really want to use that effect because if you won a combat previously this turn, you draw an additional card and gain an action. So that would be draw 3, gain an action. What a scheme card that is. Like, that is just insanely powerful. And it does have a condition. Again, you have to win the combat previously, but it's pretty easy given the tools that Bullseye has. And this is just going to push insane aggression and hand advantage and really let you control the tempo of the game because you're just going to be able to bombard them from way far away and they are just not really going to have much to do about it. So I think if you're playing competitively and with mulligans, you almost always want to mulligan for Study the Target because it is one of, if not the most important cards in Bullseye's deck for sure. It basically runs his whole engine because otherwise he doesn't have a lot of card draw other than something like For My Next Trick or I Never Miss if you don't want to boost it, but oftentimes you do want to boost this card so you can get big damage. And so Study the Target really just, it runs the engine of the deck. So overall, Bullseye is incredibly aggressive, as you can tell. He often wants to set up himself in a centralized position on the map so that he can hit nearly everywhere so the opponent can't run away. And he wants to attack them first with a big attack like I Never Miss or I Plan to Be Here, or even just something like Arrogant but Effective so that he wins a combat as his first action. Then he can pop down his scheme to draw a bunch of cards, and then he's going to attack again. And that is where the opponent really has to make a decision on how to go about their defense. Because if they're expecting World's Greatest Assassin, they might not want to defend at all if they don't have the feint. But if it's the I'm better and I'll prove it, if it's the 6, then they're not going to want to take an undefended 6, so they want to throw their biggest defense like a skirmish. But if skirmish goes into assassin, then it was a waste of a skirmish and they're still taking 4. And even if it was the 6, I mean, you're still dealing 2 over a skirmish. That's still pretty dang good. And that's where my next trick comes in, because if they do play something like a skirmish and you hit with this, sure, the skirmish is going to win the combat and get 2 spaces of movement, but this 1 space of movement, hopefully, if you've set it up properly with your positioning, will let you follow them and still be able to attack. Now you just got rid of probably their best defense, and then you can follow it up and hit with a 6, and they may not have any defenses left, or they might just have something like a 2 or a 3, something pretty mediocre. So it's a lot of mind games, but to start everything off, you need to win a combat as your first action. And in order to do that, you need to have some of these, I call them starters, right? I never miss, I plan to be here, arrogant but effective. Those are your starters. And then that leads into your follow-ups, which are the world's greatest assassin, I'm better and I'll prove it, for my next trick, or sometimes maybe even right between the eyes, or obviously study the target if you have it. And again, just be super aggressive. Be careful on your positioning. You only want your opponent to be able to attack you every now and then, and whenever they do, you probably want to play something like Master Strategist or Tactical Retreat, so you can reposition quite far away from them, but still in range, and just bombard them. And it's a very scary game for the opponent, because they really need to time when to go in correctly, because if they go in at the wrong time, they may get mega punished. Especially, even if Bullseye looks like he doesn't have a lot of cards in hand, if you don't have a lot of defenses in hand, you probably don't want to go approach Bullseye, because you might go attack him, get some damage, but then he hops away, and then he hits with, I'll never miss, and all of a sudden he's won a combat, he pops down the scheme, he's got a bunch of cards, and he just goes crazy and destroys you out of nowhere. So you need to be very careful when you're going up against Bullseye. But he's a pretty cool fighter. He obviously is a solo fighter. He's got low starting health. He has low value defenses, no healing. So if you can get those big hits on him, you can take him out. That's kind of his weakness. But overall, he's an incredibly volatile and threatening fighter to go up against. So now let's take a look at the T-Rex, and she is obviously a fan favorite, considered by many, and she is the first and only large fighter currently in the game. And if you're unfamiliar, a large fighter means that most often you are considered to be in 2 spaces, the exception being when your figure does not quite reach from one space to the previous space behind it, but most of the time you're considered to be in 2 spaces at once. And that can come into play with some certain card effects, because oftentimes you're in multiple zones. So we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But also, as a large fighter, you get the benefit of being able to attack up to 2 spaces away instead of just adjacent. So T-Rex, she is a solo fighter and she is melee, but even though she's melee, she's large, so she gets to attack up to 2 spaces away, which is incredibly strong, because you don't have to be actually adjacent to the opponent in order to attack them. So for other melee fighters, they still have to move in up adjacent to you in order to attack you back for the counterattack. So that's very, very good. And she has a massive health total of 27, which is just ridiculous. But she has a move value of 1, and that is absolutely horrible. It's the first time we've ever seen a move 1 fighter in Unmatched so far. But it's really, really bad. So thank goodness she's large and has that extra range in her attacks. Otherwise, she'd basically never be able to reach people for attacks. But anyways, her real ability is at the end of your turn, you get to draw a card. Now, that's similar to Bigfoot's, but it doesn't matter about zones and opposing fighters. It's always going to trigger automatically. It is mandatory, so it is not an option. T-Rex will always draw an extra card at the end of her turn, so if she ever takes a double maneuver turn, that's going to be 3 cards drawn in that single turn, which is incredibly good oftentimes, because you're trying to keep up that aggression, but certain instances it can be very bad, because it causes T-Rex to reach fatigue or exhaustion incredibly quickly, quicker than pretty much every other fighter in the game. So you gotta be aggressive with T-Rex. That's the name of the game. And let's take a look at the deck real quick. One of the main cards, when dinosaurs ruled the earth, red 2, during combat you can boost it, and then after combat, if you win, then you draw a card, you gain an action, and T-Rex takes 2. So self-damage on T-Rex, which lowers that massive health total, but the payoff is huge because you won the combat, so that means you dealt damage. You get to draw a card to make up for this, and gain another action to string together more devastating attacks. So this is a staple card in the deck for sure with 4 copies. The next one, Reckless Lunge. That 4 boost value is the perfect card to throw into dinos that we just talked about. So, because that makes it a 6, and that's a very strong attack, almost a second shot from Medusa, and you get to, keep on attacking. But this card itself is very strong because it's a red 3 after combat. You deal 3 damage to the opposing fighter, and then you take 3 damage. So again, we're seeing self-damage on the T-Rex, but it's a huge payoff because the opponent also takes 3. And you'll take an even trade like that for the health all day because you have 27 starting, and they probably have 18 or less. So, yeah, good trades for the T-Rex there with Reckless Lunge. Then 15,000 Pounds of Muscle is a similar card. During combat, you ignore the value of the opponent's card, so this is likely to blank their value and deal 3 to them, just like the Lunge would have dealt 3. But then after combat, you take 2 damage, so you take less than you would with a Reckless Lunge, so Muscle is often a little bit better of an attack than Lunge is. Although, if they take Lunge undefended, it's 6 damage. If they take this undefended, you're a little bit sad because they still only take 3, which they probably would have taken regardless, even if they did defend, since their card would have been ignored. So, slightly different interactions from the two, but both oftentimes deal 3 damage to the opponent, so very, very strong. And all of these cards are cards you want to feint, right? Because they're low printed value and have devastating effects. But of course, there are 3 commanding impacts in T-Rex's deck, which is a printed 5, and this is the biggest and best feint punish. And even if it's not canceled, it's a 5 value attack, and after combat draws you a card to replace itself. So you get to keep up the hand advantage, which lets you keep up the aggression and push the tempo, and get damage in because it's a printed 5, it's a huge attack, right? And so if you feint a commanding impact, that's just the biggest punish, and you're probably going to lose the game from there against T-Rex because there is so much more damage. So that means you didn't feint something that you actually need to feint, and you took a big chunk of your health in return. So very, very hard. But then Momentous Shift, another card you want to feint because as standard shift, it bumps from a 3 to a 5 if you've moved. So T-Rex almost always has to move in order to attack the opponent. And this is almost always going to trigger and be a 5. But again, the opponent wants to feint it, but there's the risk of that impact. So Shift is pretty good. Thrash is a 2-value versatile. You can boost this card as well, similar to Dinosaurs Ruled. And after combat, if you won the combat, you deal 1 damage to every fighter in T-Rex's zone. Opposing fighter, that is, if you're playing 2v2. But yeah, every fighter in T-Rex's zone, that's huge because, again, like I said, she's often in multiple zones, being a large fighter. And so you can pull off some unexpected AoE, area of effect damage, which is just big burst that hits multiple fighters, with a card like Thrash. And being able to boost it, it can be a 6-value defense, which is super strong and likely to win against almost every attack. Even a log from Bigfoot you would win if you boost this to a 6. So it's very reliable in triggering that auto damage, and that auto damage is insanely good against 1 health sidekicks like the Harpies or the Sisters or InGen Workers or whatever. So Thrash is a very, very good card and often forgotten about because it's not like the highlight card of the deck, but it is very powerful in the right situations. Then we have Terrifying Roar. This is the best defense that T-Rex has, I think, bar none. Immediately, fighters cannot leave their space for the rest of the turn, so that's all fighters. So T-Rex cannot be pushed with something like a skirmish. They cannot back off with something like a skirmish. They can't hop back if they're Robin Hood with the ability. They can't maneuver away. It locks them in place so that T-Rex is ready to just double attack them on T-Rex's following turn. So this being used on defense is incredibly threatening for the opponent because oftentimes you might have a good opportunity that you think you can counterattack Rex instead of running away and drawing defenses. But if you run into a Roar, that could all change. So you better be careful when you're actually attacking into Rex. And you better be sure that you have enough defenses to handle an onslaught, potentially, because Roar might thwart your plans of getting away. So always got to be careful about this card. It's incredibly good. And then the only blue card in the deck, it's a 1 value. You're just making her angry. During combat, you can boost this as well. And after combat, if you won the combat, return this card to your hand. Now, I'm not a huge fan of this card because oftentimes you're trading potential damage for just preserving your own health, and you have such a high health total that you probably don't need to do that anyways. You'd rather push the damage on your opponent to kill them rather than trying to preserve yours because you start with way more health than they do. So I'm not a big fan of this card. Also, it being a 1 boost value means it's not very useful to boost your movement or boost any of your other cards. But in certain matchups, this can come into play, and having a potentially recurring defense can be good in the right situations. So it's not a horrible card all the time, but I think in a lot of matchups it is. But anyways, next card is going to be Ripples in the Water. It's a scheme, her staple scheme. You get to put T-Rex in any space in her zone, and then each opponent who is adjacent to T-Rex or that has a fighter adjacent has to discard a random card. Now again, random discards are incredibly strong, like ambushes, way better than that discard we saw from Bullseye, which is a chosen discard from the opponent. Random is way better because it might hit their key card out of their hand if they're lucky, or it might hit their only defense card at the time if you're lucky. So RNG to this card, it's randomness, but it's incredibly powerful if it hits the right card. And the movement effect on this is huge. There's oftentimes on most maps a spot where T-Rex can sit and can pull off a ripple to be able to move anywhere on the map and attack the opponent regardless of where they go. Because again, that's where being in 2 different spaces comes into play, because you can be in a lot of different zones for something like ripples. And that makes this card incredibly threatening. Next, we're going to see Closer Than She Appears. We've seen this in Bloody Mary's deck. It's just move 1 space, gain 1 action, draw 1 card. So it replaces the card, replaces the action, and lets you just get a little bit of extra movement. And with T-Rex, honestly, that can make all the difference sometimes. So let's picture a situation where the opponent is melee and they actually move up and attack you. Now, they're adjacent to you. You want to double attack them, but then you don't want them to double attack you back, right? So you can play Closer Than She Appears to back off 1 space, and then you haven't essentially lost anything for doing that, and then you can double attack them, and now there's that 1 space gap in between you, but since you're large, you're able to attack them even though there's that gap. So that can be useful, as well as this can close the gap if they ran way far away and maybe your maneuver and boost doesn't quite get you there. Closer Than She Appears can be that 1 extra space of movement that you need to get into attack range in order to attack them. So it's a pretty useful card. If you don't want to actually draw the card because you're worried about you're getting towards fatigue, then you can just boost with this card instead of actually using the effect of getting that extra movement space, because you can get 2 extra movement spaces by boosting with it. So pretty good card in this deck especially. And the last card, 65 Million Years of Gut Instinct. It basically, you just choose any card other than this named card from your discard pile and add it to your hand. They don't let you choose itself because otherwise you could loop the 2 back and forth for essentially infinite passes. Not sure if that would matter because you draw automatically at the end of your turn from your ability. But anyways, they don't want an infinite loop, so you can't grab this card back, but you can grab anything else, including schemes, so you can get back more ripples, which are passes, and potential random discards from the opponent. So this, you just get whatever tool you need for the situation. But honestly, oftentimes I find myself boosting with this card because it's a 3 boost value, so that's good for movement, for getting into attack range, and it's also good for getting damage, with your many boost effects like Thrash or when Dinosaurs Ruled. So it's a pretty versatile card, can be useful in a lot of situations, but oftentimes I think it's best used as a boost. And anyways, overall, we see T-Rex's deck. It's incredibly aggressive. She has so much damage output and such high health that she pretty much turns most matchups of involving her into a game of tag. It's like a runaway game where she is trying to run at the opponent and kill them, and they are just trying to literally do nothing but double maneuver away, get out of her range, make her boost and waste cards, and draw defenses and defend every one of her attacks properly, meaning you want to feint the correct things, not the impacts, and defend big against the impacts, but not into muscle because it'll ignore it anyways. So you want to have favorable combat interactions as the opponent and just run as far away as you can and defend everything she throws at you until she gasses out. Now, that's an incredibly hard thing to do because most fighters just don't have the health totals or the healing or the defensive tools or the right movement or whatever to deal with T-Rex, and she's really strong and can be quite oppressive if she gets advantage, like in competitive play, meaning she gets the map choice and the position choice. She's nearly unstoppable, I want to say. It's just very, very strong. It's unlike anything we've seen in this game, and definitely warps a lot of matchups into a game of tag, like I said. Very few fighters can actually stand and hold their ground with T-Rex and actually move into her and attack her back, for damage. It's oftentimes just a matter of running away and surviving rather than it is actually engaging and killing T-Rex. Now, some fighters can do that, but it's just super threatening, and you better be sure you can handle her attacks when you go in, because you don't probably want to be using any of your versatiles to attack in pretty much every matchup, because you really need as many defense cards as you can get so you don't die. So you probably only want to attack T-Rex with red cards, and it's really hard. It makes it an incredibly tough game, and often your best option is just to run away. But that's T-Rex for you. I mean, she is quite as menacing as you would expect and want to see from such a terrifying fighter as a Tyrannosaurus Rex, especially the one from Jurassic Park. So it is actually really cool to see. It's a very unique thing for the game, and it's just very, very strong. All right, so some key interactions I want to point out before we actually get into the games are this here between Bullseye, as I mentioned, most often wants to lead with a starter card, right? He wants to win his first combat of the turn by playing something like I Never Miss or I Plan to Be Here, which can be a 6 and a 5 value attack respectively. And that's almost always guaranteed to win him that combat against most fighters. But against T-Rex, that's not the case, because she has Thrash and Angry to play that can boost up and match those values and actually prevent Bullseye from winning the combat, which can be incredibly detrimental if he really needs to pull off his scheme or whatever it may be. So the only way to guarantee that Bullseye wins the combat is by throwing something like Arrogant as an attack, because T-Rex doesn't have any feints, so this effect will always trigger and win him the combat. Now, it's important to note that if there's a defense like Thrash, since Defender resolves first, the Thrash will resolve in getting that auto damage effect before Arrogant considers Bullseye to have won the combat. So Bullseye might still take a ping damage attacking if it was that interaction specifically. And the problem with this is that there's a lot of mind games, because oftentimes Rex might want to just take straight up attacks undefended because she can afford to because of her high health total. And if you throw an Arrogant to confirm yourself to win the combat, no matter what happens, then you're only dealing 2 damage if she decides not to play a defense. But if you would have played I Never Miss or I Plan to Be Here, you could have dealt 5 or 6 damage, which is way better than dealing 2. But, again, if you throw these red cards, you're running the risk of Rex full blocking and you don't win the combat. So Bullseye is going to have to gauge how badly he needs to win that combat, whether it's crucial that he wins or not. And if it is absolutely crucial that he wins that combat, he might want to throw the Arrogant. But otherwise, he can throw out, one of these red cards and hope that he wins, and oftentimes he probably will, but he just needs to be aware that there is a chance that he won't because of something like Thrash and Angry. So it's a neat little interaction, leads to a lot of mind games with attacking with what card and when, and as long as both fighters are aware of that, they can play around it as they see fit for the game state. So another key thing in this matchup is Terrifying Roar, because it makes it so that both fighters are locked in place that turn. And so if T-Rex is within attack range and Bullseye starts his turn, let's say, and he wants to attack with I Plan to Be Here, because you have to do that before you move. If you attack into a Roar, sure, you deal 2 damage and you've won the combat, but now you can't get away the rest of your turn, so that T-Rex is guaranteed to start her turn in attack range of you, which means she could attack, and even if you play something like a Master Strategist or Tactical Retreat to get away, and you think, oh, well, I'll just take that first attack and then I'll get away and avoid the second attack, if she attacks with something like Dinosaurs Ruled and boosts over your card and wins the combat, deals damage right there, sure, you get away, but she's essentially not used any actions because she gained one, so she can still maneuver and boost or ripple or whatever and get to you and attack you a second time in that same turn. And that's very, very punishing for Bullseye, who can only take so many attacks in this matchup and survive. And on the flip side, Rex, if she starts her turn in attack range ever, she can attack with a Roar, and since it's immediate, it will stop these movement effects from working. And then she can follow up with a second attack with something like Dinos and go on a crazy, attack chain in a turn, which is super devastating for Bullseye once again. And that's just really deadly, and Roar just its existence, you have to play around it as Bullseye. You have to be ready for that possibility at all times whenever you're engaging with T-Rex, and just make sure that you have a contingency plan if Roar does come out. And the next thing I want to point out is the follow-up attack, right? I talked with Bullseye about a starter, and then he has a follow-up. So what does Rex do, and what does Bullseye do after Bullseye has already won a combat in the turn? What do those interactions look like? Well, what are Bullseye's options? Realistically, his best options are World's Greatest Assassin to ignore the value and deal 4. I'm Better and I'll Prove It to become a 6 value. Or something like For My Next Trick, just to bait out a defense and then follow up once again with one of these better cards here. So T-Rex has 2 good defense options after Bullseye has already won a combat. So most fighters have feints to use after Bullseye's won, and the worst that happens is they take 2 from the assassin printed value of 4 over their 2 value feint. But T-Rex doesn't have any feints, so what she does have are these value blocks with Thrash and Angry, as we went over before, because they can be a 6 or a 5 value defense. That's incredibly good. Now, if it is Assassin and Rex played either of these cards, she's pretty sad, because that's a defense gone. They didn't win the combat, so Thrash won't get auto damage, Angry won't recur itself back to the hand, and Assassin's going to waste those cards and deal 4 regardless, so that's really bad for Rex. Now, if it's Better and I'll Prove It, a 6 value, then Rex is happy to throw either of these, because sure, she can't win with Angry, but she can prevent most of the damage still. And with Thrash, she can actually win, prevent all the damage, and deal potentially some auto damage if Bullseye is in Rex's zone. But now, if they play either of these 2 defenses and it's For My Next Trick, well, if it's Thrash into For My Next Trick, then sure, Thrash wins and might deal auto damage, but For My Next Trick just baited that out, and that's T-Rex's best defensive option, and then maybe Bullseye can follow up with something like I'm Better and I'll Prove It after he sees the Thrash already being played, because there's not likely that there's going to be another one. And if it's Angry into For My Next Trick, then Angry is going to lose the combat still, even though For My Next Trick's only a 2. Unless T-Rex boosts, then Angry is just going to be wasted. So that's really detrimental. So T-Rex almost wants to boost that, even though it's only 1 damage. And so that's a whole extra card Bullseye's getting out of T-Rex's hand, which is super, super impactful. And then, again, it's the same case. Like, sure, Angry recurs back to the hand, but Bullseye could then attack with, Greatest Assassin as the follow-up after the For My Next Trick, and which would totally waste Angry once again. So, it's a lot of mind games here within combat interactions once Bullseye has already won a combat. Before Bullseye wins the combat, it's a lot more straightforward. If you throw something like a Thrash, you're pretty happy overall, unless it's arrogant but effective, which makes Bullseye win the combat guaranteed. But most cases, throwing a Thrash or an Angry on the first attack Bullseye does is pretty safe, but on the second, on the follow-up, it can be pretty risky. So just a lot of neat little combat interactions that we might be able to see in this matchup. So overall, this matchup is very interesting for the sole fact that most characters, when Rex aggresses them, they don't have the breathing room to actually attack Rex back for a counterattack and push the damage and aggression back at T-Rex, because they're too busy running away to create distance, right? Physical distance, a gap between them, so that T-Rex has to chase, and they're trying to draw their defense cards. Now, Bullseye running is not going to accomplish anything, because him drawing defense cards with max of 3 value defense means not much, right? Because he can have as many of them as he wants. He's likely to take probably 2 or even 3 damage for every single combat interaction. And he has no health, or not no health, but low health and no healing. So he probably dies to about 5 attacks. And so his main thing is, the more he can change the math on that number of attacks that he can survive, the better off he's going to be. But because of the fact that he's on a clock from the get-go more than most fighters, he has to push that counter-aggression. But he actually has the tools to do it, because when T-Rex comes up to attack, he can play one of his movement defenses to, again, position very far away from T-Rex, but still able to attack her. And then T-Rex has no feints, so all of his effects are guaranteed to work. And that's really good for him, because he can win combats really easily, deal massive damage, push aggression with card draw, and T-Rex might not have defenses, so he can catch her undefended oftentimes. And sure, T-Rex has a lot of health at 27, but she also does a lot of self-damage if she's utilizing her good attacks like Muscle or Reckless Lunge. And so, again, Bullseye has to expect to probably take 3 damage every attack, but Rex is also whittling herself down, and he is whittling her down at the same time. So because of the fact that most of his defenses give movement, and his ability letting him attack from so far away, he's out of the danger zone essentially and still being able to attack. And because of his high aggression and card draw, because of all of those things, he actually has the tools to push the counter aggression back at T-Rex and actually kill her through attacking rather than just running the whole game. And I think that's how he's going to have to win, right? It's going to be a battle of who can kill who first. Now, T-Rex has a little bit more of an advantage, I think, because the high health total means she can take some attacks undefended without having to worry too much, whereas most other fighters can't afford to do that against Bullseye. And also, she's probably more consistent because Bullseye really, really needs that scheme to draw his cards quickly and really get that hand advantage and push the tempo and the aggression early. Whereas T-Rex, her ability is constant. Every single turn, she's going to draw cards, and it's no matter what. So T-Rex will probably get through her deck a little bit quicker than Bullseye on average, and because of that, she will be a little more consistent because she gets to see all of her cards or most of her cards in her deck, whereas Bullseye may not. So Bullseye really needs to get that scheme and push that counter aggression. But it's going to be an explosive matchup, to say the least. Once again, I cannot wait to see what happens. So I'm going to be playing against Unmatched Chad, a good friend of mine. You saw him before in the last episode. I think he's going to stick around in this series as long as you all approve. So let me know down in the comments what you think of Chad. He's a great guy. I'm sure you love him. But check out his YouTube channel as well, because he does post some videos of his own. It's a relatively new channel, but he's got great content, very thought-provoking, and a lot of fun. So check it out at Unmatched Chad. That's his YouTube name, and I can't wait to get into these games. So I hope you all enjoy it, and let's get on over and see what happens.
Welcome, everybody. We're doing matchup of the month for September, and this one is going to be Bullseye versus T-Rex, which is going to probably be a pretty explosive game. I've not done this one personally, but I've heard of people who played it and seen talk of it on the Discord. And I think it's probably pretty T-Rex favored, but Chad, do you have any insight?
So I played this one 3 times with one guy, Anthony, or B Cyclone, and I personally believe he's one of the best Rex players out there. He just loves T-Rex, plays a lot of her, and every time, like in like ladder play and just in casuals, I always see T-Rex winning quite often. So, but we tried this a couple of times, and to me, it really feels very map dependent.
Sure.
So it very much depends on basically how far away Bullseye can run and still be able to smack Rex without Rex being able to like instantly close the gap with like ripples or, you know, some of the lower boost values and stuff like that. So I do tend to believe that it is Rex favored, but maybe not as much as some people claim. The big part about it is that Rex oftentimes in any game, any match, will go through most of her deck. At the end of the game, she either has killed the opponent or she's fatigued out. Very rarely does her and the opponent reach fatigue at the same time. You're doing these kind of mind games and dancing at the end. Not true. She's either used all of her cards well and killed you, or she doesn't have enough steam and she, you know, fatigues out. So she'll normally see all 30 of her cards. However, the opponent will usually see maybe 2/3 of their deck, maybe, you know, have 10 cards left, 8 to 10 cards left in their deck. So whatever those 8 cards that are left, sometimes the opponent just didn't get enough steam to either defend what they needed to defend or attack with what they needed to attack. And normally I don't like blaming anything on deck order and stuff, because it's normally how you played around it and stuff. However, with Rex literally doing maneuver attack almost every turn and you just trying to stay alive, I think deck order becomes much more relevant in this conversation just because she'll normally see all of her cards and you won't.
That's a fantastic point. Yeah, because most matchups go pretty much towards the end of the deck. Maybe not quite all the way to fatigue, but most of the way there. And so it's kind of like depleting the deck size at an even pace most of the time. So yeah, I think that's a good point. It's going to be, that's what makes Rex one of the most volatile fighters, I think. Things are just going to go your way and you're going to kill your opponent, or you're going to burn out because the combat interactions aren't going to go well for you and you just run out of steam, right? And I think both of these fighters in particular are extremely map dependent, more so than probably the majority of the cast. So yeah, I think what we should do is, since we do think it's T-Rex favorite, I think Bullseye should start first, but we should choose probably a relatively neutral map, and then see how that goes. Because as we've seen from like the tournament scene so far, I think Rex on full advantage, getting map and position, is just pretty dominant against mostly all fighters. So let's flip it around a little bit, give Bullseye advantage, and maybe more of a neutral map so he doesn't like have too much advantage, and we'll see how that goes.
I think that sounds good. I think I was thinking, for example, like Baskerville might be too much of an advantage for Bullseye, because he has a lot of like move 1, move 2, move 4, and because of the passageways that Rex cannot use, moving 1 could be a difference of 5 spaces for Rex. So he gains, I think, too much of an advantage from that.
I agree.
From that, as well as Raptor Paddock, although it is one of Bullseye's best maps in general, it's also one of Rexy's best maps. And so I think that one is a clear out, no longer in the running as well.
Yeah, definitely not. And I do want to point out before we actually get too much into the map talk too, you were talking about how normally Rex either gasses out or kills the opponent, right? And the job of the opponent facing Rex is just to survive and outlast and burn her out. But I think Bullseye actually has a real win condition of like attacking, because his defenses are so low in value that he can't survive for too long. So I think he is going to have to put the aggression back at T-Rex in order to win and pull off some big combo turns and whatnot, and actually kill her rather than trying to outlast, which is going to be fun to try to accomplish.
I agree. I think it really is a big question of how much damage can Bullseye do and how much damage has Rex done to herself. And like I feel like it's kind of a graph. And if the Bullseye player can make them meet, at that 0 where, he's done enough and she's done enough to herself, where, she's done 8 damage to herself, he's done 19. Can he do that 19?
Right.
Or does he need to do 17? So, can he make her it's a bunch of stuff like that, I think.
Yeah, and I think every time Bullseye gets attacked, you got to expect to take minimum 2 damage, if not probably 3, right? Because a lot of Rex's attacks, like the 15,000 pounds of muscle and the reckless lunge, are going to deal 3 almost no matter what, unless they're fainted. But then if you faint, you're risking commanding impact punish for the 3 anyways. So almost every combat interaction, you got to expect Bullseye's probably taking 3 on average, in which case he can only take 5 attacks and then he's dead. So within 5 attacks, like how much offense can you push back on Rex, and can you make it enough?
Yeah,
guess that's what we're going to find out.
Yeah, we're going to see.
That'll be interesting.
I do one more thing that I just want to highlight before we get into it. There is a very, very interesting interaction within these 2 decks, and that is Bullseye's card, Arrogant But Effective, which is a 2-value versatile card that says you are considered to have won the combat.
Right.
Now that's important, that if it considers you to have won the combat, it means that your opponent has lost the combat. You can't both have won the combat.
Right.
And this really comes into play with 2 of Rex's cards, but one of them is When Dinosaurs Ruled the Earth.
Yep.
Which is a 2-value red card, which you may boost as the offender, and if you then win the combat, you deal 2 damage to yourself, you draw 1 card, and you gain 1 action. So if I defend with arrogant but effective, and you can still boost your card and deal lots of damage over the top, but then you won't deal 2 damage to yourself. You will also not draw a card and not gain an action.
Right.
So there is a weird interaction there where sometimes Bullseye wants you not to gain that extra action, but other times where he does want you to take that 2 damage to yourself.
Right.
So it's a weird niche interaction, I think, that Bullseye has here.
Yeah, that is really interesting. In a way, it's good because you stop the combo chain, right? The action gain, but taking probably 4 damage, I don't know if that's worth it. But if we're assuming that Bullseye can only handle 5 attacks anyways, then taking 4 versus 3 at least one time anyways isn't going to change the math on that, right? Because if you do 4 and then you take 3 every other time, then you're up to 7 and then 10 and then 13, and you're still alive at 1 health for the 5th attack.
Yeah.
So with it not really changing the math, I think you can probably afford to do that 1 time per game if it is really benefiting Bullseye for whatever reason, if he doesn't have any other defenses or whatever the case may be. But
Yep.
yeah,
So.
that'll be interesting. On to maps. We already know Raptor Paddock is OP for Rex. It's good for Bullseye, but not good enough to swing that in his favor. Baskerville's probably too good on the Bullseye end, so what else might be good?
I've played it on Yukon, and it's a matchup that can actually work on Yukon. So if we get one of the only streams that might be played on Yukon, this might be the one to take.
Take the advantage on Yukon while we can get it.
Yeah.
I'm fine with Yukon. Let's do Yukon because it might be the only time we play Yukon, right? So
Yeah, I think so. We're telling our kids about Unmatched, and we're like, yeah, we once had this map. Let me pull it off for you.
Oh, that's funny.
This used to be legal. What? There's no way this would ever be legal.
Since I'm playing the Bullseye end first, I'm not really a big Bullseye player. Let's hope I make the right decision when it comes to the mulligan. But I will mulligan because from what I can tell from watching Baked Goods, that, gremlin that we know, I'm looking for the scheme, right?
Yeah. And for me, I don't hate it, but I would prefer less schemes.
Oh yeah, you need more defense maybe. I mean, against Bullseye.
I honestly think so. I need to defend something.
Yeah.
At least, and not make it given to you early, I feel.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
All right,
We'll
well,
see. All
double
right.
mulligan. Let's both hope for something better. Man, here we go. Good luck, have fun.
Yeah, good luck, have fun.
Okay, I'm going to start. Let's see, I got to do my counting to 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can hit you. So let's start with an attack. Roar. Ooh. So I can't move. That's a little unfortunate. But I will take this opportunity to boost, because why not while I can. And we'll get 3 damage in here.
All right.
So I have 1 combat, so I will go ahead and scheme.
Absolutely.
I got it. So I will draw 3 cards and gain an action.
Wow, you really don't play a lot of Bullseye.
I do not. Why? What? What do you mean by that?
No, I realize now that you're reading it out for the stream, but it sounded like you were reading that card because you weren't sure what it did. I was like, come on, John.
No, I know enough. I hope. We'll see.
We'll see.
Okay, I have 1 more action. 4 in hand. Let's go ahead and attack again.
All right, so you could either be smacking me for big, or you could be baiting out with one of your 2s.
Right.
I'm going to take it.
Taking it? Oh,
Yeah.
I'm smacking big, buddy.
6.
Go big or go home.
That's right. Absolutely. No time for these little piddly little.
That's right.
Okay,
We're not playing no games.
that's right.
All right, you're up.
All right, my turn. Okay.
Yep.
I'm gonna maneuver.
Maneuver and then closer than she appears. Okay.
Yep. She'll put me there.
Yep.
She'll let me draw a card,
hmm
and then I will go ahead and attack.
We'll do a tactical retreat.
All right.
All right, so no combat damage. Mine will trigger first. I get to put Bullseye in a space that shares no zones. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's good there. And then yours will go and we both take 3.
Yep.
All right. Well, I'm doing pretty good keeping up with the damage race right now.
That's right.
See if I
And
can
then
keep
I
that
draw a
up.
card.
Yep. All right, so my turn. You're at a significant card advantage. Well, maybe I take this opportunity to double maneuver while I can, because you're not in a great ripple spot. We'll play it a little slower. I'll maneuver. Then I'll maneuver again, and we'll go... What's the farthest away? Okay, I'll end there. Your turn.
I'm gonna maneuver. All right. This might not be advised, but I'll go here, and then I'll ripple.
Okay, okay. So it'll end your turn. You'll get a discard, but then I get to act, which is great for me. So go
That's
ahead and
correct.
roll a d6, and we'll just re-roll on a 6. Number 5 will be the last one. That's a pretty good one, I think.
Nice.
Because, yeah, I need that for big combo turns.
Yep. And then I draw a card.
And I think in most matchups, when you ripple, you're looking to pull out defenses. But, again, in Bullseye's case, I think it only takes 5 attacks and I'm dead. So you don't really care about my defense quantity. You're more so looking to probably hit my firepower.
Yeah.
I'm going to maneuver again. And I think if I go right here, I at least avoid the ripple discard. And you still have to boost to get to me. So that seems like the best spot I can go, so I'll end there.
All right. I'll maneuver, and I'll boost with that.
The perfect boost.
Exactly.
I hope that you're going to come to regret getting rid of a defense here.
We'll see. We'll see. I was wondering if I should make that call or not, but yeah, we'll see. Okay.
Look at this crazy upside down Rex.
So I'll attack you.
Well, I think the best thing I can do is another tactical retreat. So, do you want to boost? Boosting with another dinos, I like it. So yours is a 5, I'll take 2. Again, doesn't change the math, even though you only got 2 there. I think still 3 more attacks and I'm probably dead.
Yeah.
So I can go... You took your damage already, right? But you still have to draw.
I did. Yep.
You'll still draw and gain an action, so you'll have 1 action available. You are in the gray, so I need to watch out for that for ripples. But if you ripple, it ends your turn. So maybe I'm not afraid of that, and I want to just be able to attack you no matter what. Yeah, I'll go there, and you can have your last action.
All right. Last action will be reclaiming a ripple.
Yeah.
And then I'll draw a card with my turn.
All right. Well,
All right.
I know
That's
you
my
can
turn.
only have a max of 4 defenses here. So let's see how this goes. I'll go ahead and start with an attack. Oh man, we got the same interaction as turn 1.
That's right.
Yeah, we're gonna discard the same card too. We're gonna get the 6.
Sounds good.
So I did win the combat, and history repeats itself, man. We got the same
so
exact
fun.
thing happening. So I'll draw 3 in game.
Yeah, that's not great for me for you to get that second one
Definitely not.
so early too.
Yeah. So I'm still under the roar. But I'm just looking to pack on the damage at this point, I think. So I'll attack again, last action. And that's only a shift of 3, so I'm going to get rid of... I think I need to just straight up maximize my damage output. So we're going to get rid of this for 3.
Yeah.
And you can go.
Sounds good. Okay, so first action for me will be a ripple.
Yep.
Go ahead and we'll go. It's in gray, right?
Yep.
I will go there.
Okay.
Um,
And then let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
sounds good.
So 5, 6. Ooh, not what I wanted you to hit.
Ooh, nice.
I want that auto damage right now.
Yeah, I think so. I'll go ahead and attack you.
I really wish you didn't get rid of that defense. I feel like this is going to make or break the game right here. Because I think it's a commanding impact. Risk it for the biscuit, I guess.
Ooh, good risk.
Oh, good deal. All right. So I'll take 1 there. That's big. Okay, and then you drew at the end, so I'll take a maneuver, obviously. Maneuver again. Go 1, 2, and your turn.
I'll go ahead and maneuver.
I think it was super impactful that I feinted a shift there. If you feint any of the 3 printed value cards, I think you're in a great spot because it actually does change the math on how many times you can be attacked.
Yeah, I'll maneuver again, and then I draw with my ability.
Yep.
All right, and you're up.
Okay, so I'm not in range to attack you first action, so I'll maneuver. And then I'll maneuver again. Go 1, 2. So I avoid the ripple discard, and you can go.
Sounds good. All right, so I'll maneuver.
Feels good, man, when you can actually put Rex on the run.
Yeah, I just needed cards.
Yep.
I think I'll boost with a closer.
Okay.
Go 1, 2, 3. Then I will attack you.
I think we'll take the auto damage while we can get it.
Yeah, so I take 1. You'll take 2.
Take 2, yep.
I'll draw 2 cards.
Okay, I'm gonna first action attack. And this is great because it only works in T-Rex's zone, which I'm not in.
Yeah,
One of the very few times that you can actually get around that Thrash auto damage.
exactly.
So I assume you're not boosting.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I can move up to 1 space, which I will. Draw a card, gain an action. So I'm back to having used no actions. Yeah, I'll maneuver. We'll go 1, 2. I'll maneuver again. And I'll go there and hope you don't have the ripple. Your turn.
Well, you're not wrong.
All right. Sometimes lucky.
I'll maneuver.
Yep.
And I'll actually play this.
Okay. You're not moving, though, with your maneuver because you're still in the gray.
Yeah, which I'm okay with.
Okay.
Because I'll take
Gonna
that.
get back a Thrash. Okay.
And then I draw a card.
Yep. I'm afraid of attacking because you have that Thrash, and I don't want to take damage by attacking you. I'll maneuver.
I love how we talked about not reaching fatigue.
Yeah, and we're getting there, yeah. We're getting there. For
I don't
sure.
think we'll probably reach it, but it's still wild.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go there and did I maneuver again? No, I didn't. I have to draw again?
Yeah.
Ooh. Alright, I'll draw again. And I will stay there and discard arrogant but effective.
Yeah.
And it's your turn.
Wouldn't it be a great time to have one of my 2 ripples left?
Yeah. You can get there with a maneuver, it's fine.
I'll maneuver. And I'll boost with one of these.
Okay. Yeah, you're just hitting with impacts from now on. You don't want to take that auto.
1, 2, 3, 4. I was here, so yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep, that's good.
Alright, and then I'll attack you with this.
This is going to be an impact, so I'm going to throw out the last ricochet. I'll take 2, you take 1.
Draw 1, draw another. And I'll discard one of these.
Yep.
Alright, you're up.
All right, I think this might be like the moment of truth here. I'm not in your zone, so that's good news for me. Let's attack.
Yeah.
So I can move, what, up to 2?
Yep.
I'll move just 1 space.
Yeah.
And then I did win the combat. So
Yep.
I will attack again. Do you want to boost? Yeah, nice. You avoided the damage. All right. Well, that's the end of my turn. You're up.
I'll maneuver. Not getting any ripples is really messing with me.
Yeah, dude.
That stinks. So I'll move there.
Hey, it's kind of like you said it at the beginning about the deck order, right? How usually T-Rex sees the whole deck and the opponent doesn't. But look at it. We're 5 and 6, and so we're both seeing. We're both missing out on cards.
So what's my win condition here, I guess, is my question. I'll attack.
We will do one of those. Ooh.
I think that's it. I had to bet that you didn't have it, I think.
Dang. All right. I hope that's it. We're going to find out. What if I go here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. No, that's not going to do it. I just need to stay out of your zone, yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, we'll go there.
All right.
And it's my turn. I will go ahead and make an attack. First action. So mine's a 5.
Oh, yeah. Well done.
So you take 1.
Yeah. I could have sworn you were going to attack with your arrogant but effective. I guess I should have played into that.
I'm going to attack again. You might not die here. Yeah, you don't die. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, that's my turn. You're up.
Man, I thought I was way dead.
You know, talking about missing cards at the bottom of your deck, my 4s.
Yep. All right. Here we go. Maneuver. Of course it is. There it is. That's what we've been waiting for. I'll boost.
Yep.
Go 1, 2, 3. I'll play closer. I'll attack you.
Feels bad, man. Feels bad. Oh my god. Why? Are you kidding me?
That's ridiculous.
Oh. That was my nuts. That
Dude.
wasn't going to help. That would have helped.
Dude, both of them.
Both of them. Card 3 and 4 from the bottom.
There
Oh
it
my
is.
god, dude. So
I guess this one didn't matter because I was expecting that into that.
Yeah, right. I wish I had it. Obviously, I
so-
would have had guaranteed lethal then.
Yeah, my thought process was I attack with this. If you feint it, you go down to 3.
Yep.
And so then one of these will kill you.
Yep, and
'Cause
that would
you
have been my
one
last
more
feint.
And so then if I throw this, as long as you don't have this, you couldn't move out of my zone.
Yeah,
So you couldn't attack me.
right.
Unless you had this in one of your 3s, I guess.
Yep.
But you would have had to have the perfect combination of 3 cards left in your hand. You would
Yeah.
have had to have this, one of your 3s, that wasn't one of these, and then also, another 3.
Mm-hmm.
So I felt like it was a good call for me to attack there. I just had to risk that you didn't have this.
Yeah.
Because I felt like if I either double maneuvered and stayed there, and risk, you couldn't attack me because I had the thrash and I had the boost to keep it. So yeah, I wasn't sure what my play was there.
I think it was definitely right to go attack because you put me on lethal, right? Confirmed lethal. Like any of your attacks will kill me, guaranteed at that point once I was down to 1 health. So I had to make a counter push and go for the 2 attacks with my 5s and hope it was enough because I had the 2 red 5s and then I had a feint. It literally didn't matter because I was at 1. So even if I run away, Unless, could I have made it so that you couldn't reach me? I don't think so, because you still had closer.
I had in my hand, so in my hand was closer, and I drew into this, so I could have moved for 4.
So let's say I was, is this the farthest away I can get? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so this is the farthest away I can possibly get, which means you can maneuver 1, and then close, or maneuver and boost, so that's 3, and then closer would get you 4. That wouldn't have got you there, huh? 4. Yeah,
Nope.
it wouldn't have got you there. So I guess maybe I misplayed there. Maybe I should have played around you not being able to move far enough and double maneuver to secure my win condition by getting the 4.
But then I could like chill here, I think, and I would have been able to reach you, I think, in
Oh
the
yeah.
future anyway.
The problem is that then I don't get like a double attack turn, right?
Exactly.
Because...
So I think I had it.
Yeah, you had
Because
it no
then
matter what.
If you don't get a double attack turn, so I'm able to defend whatever you throw. I still have one of these. I would have defended with my last thrash, so that I guarantee to defend against your 6.
Yep.
And then I would have been good, I think.
Man, what a game. I just
What a
had to go
game.
for
That's
it there.
a fun game one.
That was fun. That was very fun.
But I will say, I guess that does speak, because I was a little too hasty complaining about not getting these here, and you didn't get either of these. So
yeah,
that is just, I guess, a perfect highlight of why I don't like to, complain about deck order, because at the end of the day, your opponent's critical cards could have also been buried.
Yep.
So, I don't think it's really fair to say, oh, well, I lost because of deck order. Well, it's like, well, remember when I took that attack undefended?
Yeah.
I had a defense that, a whole different. And you start getting into all that.
There's all kinds of what ifs, but you just gotta play with what you're dealt.
Yeah.
And man, this was close. It was a lot of fun. Early game when I hit you like really hard first turn, you took it? Did you have any defense?
I had a shift.
Okay.
And I knew that I'd have to use at least one of those on defense, but
Yeah.
I did feel like shifts, because I didn't want to do a lot of self-damage to myself.
Yeah, smart.
Because I did 8 there. I think 2 of these and that. Yeah.
Yep, you
And
did 8 total.
None of these were to finish the game, which is risky.
Yes.
Because if you finish the game right, it's like you don't take the auto damage.
Right.
So 8, right? So it's a little risky. So I felt like shifts were going to be a big source of my damage, or I wanted them to be. So I took it because of that, and I was also wondering if you were trying to throw one of these, and bait it out. So that was kind of my thought process there. If I'd gotten a thrash or one of my ones earlier, I might have just thrown it to see, what it was. If it was your 6, okay, I boost it with like a 3, and I only take 2.
Right.
If it's your 4, who cares? If it's anything else, then I could probably get my card back,
right.
Which is okay. So
yeah, I can see wanting to hold the shift.
Anything I was willing to throw, I think.
Yeah, makes sense. Man, this card is so good in the matchup. It's always guaranteed 4.
Guaranteed 4. It's also equally as good into Yananga.
Yeah, like you full blocked. Card. You full blocked a 6. That was crazy. And then you blocked most of a 5 at the end, and then a full 5. Like T-Rex can actually have really good value blocks when she needs to. And then definitely in this matchup, you need to, because if you don't, you're going to die.
Yeah. I mean, I think generally I use these to boost, because sometimes they're clogging my hand. But the first ripple, I think, was a good call for me to take that back to go ahead and get a ripple into an attack. Mm-hmm. And then my second one, pulling my thrash, I felt a lot better about than that first one, because I think this is probably the best
one of the best
card in this matchup.
Yeah, I think it is, definitely. The auto damage actually matters a lot. Like, as you saw, I had to play around that. I couldn't attack like all willy-nilly on certain turns, because I couldn't just hit into this and take self-damage, because it changes the clock. It's all about the clock, right? How many attacks can you survive? And you saw I ended up at 1 health at the end before you ultimately killed me. I would have already been dead if I took that auto damage. So it's huge. Huge.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. Well, let's flip it around and do it again.
All right, let's do it. I'm excited.
Yes.
I shall mulligan. I did get one of the red cards, but I'm also looking for the scheme.
Yep. Like any good bullseye would do, right?
I know, right?
I think I'll actually keep this.
All right, you ready?
Yeah, man. Good luck, have fun.
Yeah, you too. All right, first action, I'll attack you.
First action attacking, of course.
Like any good bullseye should.
Like any good bullseye should, of course. Let's throw a thrash, even though I'm not getting the auto damage, which is scary. Oh, come on. Not a fan of that.
I'll go here so that you can't ripple me. Boom!
Yeah. You got it. Congrats.
That's right. Look at how good of a player I am.
Yeah.
Alright, I'll go ahead and attack.
Follow in your footsteps and take it. Give me the 6, buddy. Ah.
Good take.
Okay.
Go ahead and attack you.
Take it again.
Nice.
Okay, so I have to discard a card?
Yeah.
That's fine. So I take 3. I'll discard the muscle.
Yeah.
And then it's my turn, huh?
Uh-huh.
Alright. So I will do a maneuver. And I'm going to contemplate my life decisions.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that discard was the right play, but I wanted you to have less fuel for boosting and such to...
If I don't closer than she appears right here, and I boost and an attack, like I'm very low on cards. And if you have that other scheme, you can really put me on the back foot in the tempo.
Yeah, that was... My idea was basically that. Maybe that one discard buys me a turn.
I'm going to actually back off, I think. Because then I can maneuver again. And then go back here. And then you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, a million. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. I'll go there and it's your turn.
Alright, I'll go ahead and I'll maneuver. I'll go ahead and maneuver again and I'll go here. And it's your turn.
Okay. I will do a maneuver. I feel like I'm just a terrible T-Rex player. How can I let this happen? Jeez. This matchup is so different from any other, though, because you actually have to worry about that counter pressure. This is so bad. I have to approach, right? Because if I don't, I just deck out. I have to go in. So the one maneuver will be like that, and then feels terrible, but I'm going to ripple just to ripple. And I think I'm going to go here. And then I'll draw at the end of my turn.
Okay, so then if you have Terrifying Roar, then you're going to get to double attack me, which can be scary.
Ah, you say double attack, but come on. Bullseye's got a million get-out-of-jail-free cards, as you call them.
It's true.
I think that's what gives him a chance in this matchup more than others, is he can hop away out of danger and then put the counterattacks in without being right next to Rex.
I will attack you first action.
Yeah, we're going to throw out the roar.
Sounds good.
I'll take 2.
That's okay, because I plan to be here. Alright, and then I'll attack you.
We'll throw the thrash. And yours is a 6.
Mm-hmm.
So I will boost with Dinos to make mine a
Yeah.
5, and I'll take 1. We're going to start with an attack. Yep. That's 2 damage. I draw.
I think I'll go there.
Okay. So I have 1 more action. It's going to be a maneuver. Do I even want to move?
It's the perfect spot, man.
I think it really is, honestly. I
Yeah.
don't think there's a better spot. And I'm out of your range, so I'll just end there and draw.
I'm going to maneuver. I'll maneuver again. And I mean, it doesn't matter too much. If you have Ripple, you have it. So I think
Right.
I'll stay there.
Okay. Then I will Ripple.
Yeah.
I'll go there and then roll a d6. Here we go. Hit a winner.
Oof.
Okay, okay. I'll take that. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
And then I have one more action.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll make an attack. Ooh, that's big for me. 'Cause I
Yeah.
get the 3 damage without having to play one of my auto damage cards. So then I'll draw from commanding, and I'll draw at end of turn, and you can go.
Dang. Yeah, that was my my one get out of jail free card decided to pull from my hand.
Yep.
I'll maneuver. I'll maneuver again. So if I boost and get to here, you can't get me without boosting for a 4 and a closer.
Yes.
Is that worth it to me? I'll stay there.
Okay. So then I'll maneuver. I'll boost with the lunge.
Uh-huh.
Ends like that. Let's throw out an attack. That's 2. And you move 4 spaces.
Okay, we'll do that.
Yep, seems good. And then I draw at the end of my turn, and you can go.
Feel like I need to play potentially around your 1 thrash remaining. I will attack you.
Let's do a roar.
I'll boost for 3.
Okay. And then you have one more action still.
I do. I'll maneuver.
Oh, remember you can't move though because of roar.
Yeah, no, I know.
Okay.
I'm staying there.
Gotcha.
Just drawing the card.
Yep, yep.
All right, you're up.
Okay, I will then maneuver. We're gonna boost with this. Like, that card's actually good in the matchup.
It is.
But
I
1,
agree.
2 will go like that. I feel like with you having a low hand count, I need to like push the tempo while I can.
I think so.
So then I'll attack. And that's what I thought you'd play, and I'm actually gonna boost it up.
Yep.
So we're gonna get a 5er in here.
So I take 2, you take 3.
Yep, I take 1 from the ricochet, 2 from the dinos.
Yeah.
So I draw 1 for dinos and gain the action. I will attack again. Ooh.
Oof.
Yeah, that hurts. So I take 3. And then I draw at the end, and it's your turn.
I'll attack you.
So you don't win combat if I boost with this,
Correct.
and then I get the blue back to hand.
Then I'll maneuver. I'll boost.
Yup, smart boost. Alright, my turn.
Yeah.
I will maneuver. I will just play Gut Instinct, get back a lunge,
Yeah.
so that I can reach you next turn. And
All right. Well played.
I maneuvered first, right?
Yeah.
So then I draw at the end, and it's your turn.
I'll maneuver. I think it's GG, right?
Yeah, if I have confirmed lethal as long as one of my attack cards are the auto damage ones, or a shift, or a commanding.
Yeah. And so you have to boot 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, you have 3 closers too.
True.
So I'll just maneuver again. All right, your turn.
Yeah, I didn't have the closer earlier, but I got it now, so I'll play that. And then I'll maneuver,
Boost with a 3, attack with a 4.
boost with, yeah, I can boost with lunge, and attack.
Yeah, well done.
Yeah, good game.
Yeah, that was. Yeah, I think that might have been maybe a more to be expected game of this.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that last attack, right? You had 4 defenses left: 1 thrash, 2 shifts, and 1 of these. You had 10 cards left in deck, 4 cards in hand. I have 1 health, right? So I'm probably gonna die, and I had this and this. So I went ahead and said, all right, If you don't have a defense, that's 10 damage. I'm gonna kill you. So I just went for it.
I was
And
at 10, huh? Exactly at 10?
yeah. So if you
Okay,
didn't have, did you have the shift?
I did.
Yeah. Okay. Then, you had two of your defenses that you needed, but I felt like I had to just go for it because I'm at 1 health, right?
Yeah.
So if you have this, it's game over.
Yep. I agree.
So,
You had to go for it. You made the right call. You recognized your win condition. It didn't pan out that way, but you knew what it was, and that was the 10 burst right here. And yeah, that was smart.
I just drew into this. I was like, no.
Man. So I think the biggest difference that we saw between these two games is that I saw both of my schemes before like end game, right? And you didn't.
Yeah.
Also, me as T-Rex, I saw more commanding impacts than you did in the early game. You saw 1 in the early game, I saw 2. And that doesn't seem to make a huge difference, but I think it really does because both of these fighters want as much card draw as they can possibly get in this matchup so that they have the right tools for the right situations.
Yeah.
So even one draw for commanding is big because it's an attack that I can throw that'll draw me a card to replace it, and also it's a big attack that I don't have to use a defense like I would with a shift, and I don't have to take self-damage like with a lunge or a muscle.
Yeah.
So
I think so. I think early game I was looking pretty good.
yeah.
Forcing you to have to approach me in weird ways and have to spend a lot of stuff. As you mentioned, you didn't have this earlier, so maybe I should have done that just to get more cards into my deck, to just hopefully get those critical cards. But I felt like it was fairly, if you did have it, then I was just wasting one of my cards and I didn't know when I was going to see that card draw, right? And you were going to do it anyway. That was my thought process was, playing the odds of you did have it, but maybe I should have avoided that to see, because then you would have had to overdraw.
Yeah.
Major time. So.
Yeah, it's hard to make the calls, right? It's a lot of coin flip interactions with T-Rex, that's for sure, and with Bullseye too, honestly.
Yeah, I do. So I do. When you went here and I double attacked you, I'm wondering if I should have run away. There is just a question of like I have to stand and fight at least 1 point in the game, right? Like I have to do that at some point. So maybe I do it when I have this, or maybe more like get out of jail free cards.
Yeah, it's hard though because right, like you have a limited number of attacks you can take. So every turn you go without attacking back at T-Rex, that's potentially like one less turn you have to attack at all in the game.
Yeah.
So it's tough. You really need that draw power. Like this and these both are huge for the draw power.
Yeah, getting one of these early was really helpful for me.
Yeah, you definitely.
I did like using this. I did have a 6 though, so maybe I should have just thrown it, as you mentioned, for the damage sooner. But I did like you. You didn't approach me that turn. Which I like.
I think I would have liked. Oh, that's hard to say. Because yeah, you're right. Because you made me discard, I think that's probably why I didn't approach. Because I would have been too much on the back foot in tempo. But then again, you did miss out on a lot of damage. Ultimately, I mean, I still had 10, but imagine if I was at, I don't know, if I was at 7, would it have made a difference? I don't think so in this particular game.
Yeah, no, because I didn't draw into anything.
And that's the hard part about playing against Rex in general, is that she has so much health that you often don't get to the point, like you said, it's like a graph, right, where the opponent's damage meets up with Rex's self-damage and kind of levels out her overall health total into something manageable, like 18 or so, like King Arthur has. But often you don't get to that point because Rex kills you too quickly that all the self-damage doesn't catch up yet, So that's what makes it tough, because if you're counterattacking Rex at the wrong time, you're really not accomplishing anything at all. You're just putting yourself in a more dangerous situation, and she doesn't even care because she has enough health to work with as a resource that she can just take hits when needed.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe I was a little too aggressive. Like when I was here too, I attacked you as well. Maybe I should have just backed off when you're not on that special spot, and maybe have run here, force you. Because the more I can force you out of these, I think the better.
Yeah.
If you can't use these on, not necessarily to attack, more for, obviously attacking is extremely deadly for me.
But for the boost.
But more so for boosting for defense, offense,
Yeah.
and potentially just to reach me. So, it's too, it's too valuable to leave in your hand, I think. So maybe I gotta force you to use those whenever you can.
Yeah, I agree. Um, Overall, what did you think about the matchup? How do you feel about it?
I don't know.
Who's
I wouldn't
favored?
say this changed any of my opinions on it, but I do feel like it's a lot more technical of a matchup than I think people, at least in the Discord, and when I remember having this conversation with other people, gave it credit for.
Yeah.
Because I do think there is like a critical moment where Bullseye has to decide when to stand and fight and when to run away.
Yeah.
And I think we saw in your game, I think you did a lot better at choosing those specific interactions than we see that I did here. And it would have been different if I had, been able to run away and potentially not had to take 4 from this, or not have to suffer a double attack with your boost.
Yep.
Stuff like that. So maybe there is something to be said for that.
Right.
That said, I'm not sure if that would have changed because let's see, because I had these red cards at the top of my deck, and then
But if you got even a couple cards deeper, you would have seen this maybe, and that can change the
that's the
whole
critical
game.
part, I think.
Yeah.
Because now also I really love these on offense
Yeah.
into Rex.
Yep.
As we see from against you, my turn 1 action, you basically just lost this card. You didn't get to boost, which is good because you kept the card in your hand, but you didn't get the 1 damage, and I still considered to win the combat. So I think you as the Rex player would rather have taken 2
Oh yeah.
from this, right?
And save the thrash.
However, you can't take a first action attack from Bullseye in a game like that in case I have a 6 or
Right.
a 5.
Exactly.
So there's the risk there. So I do like attacking with these because it's like I don't have to spend any extra cards to do it, and I'm guaranteed to land like a 6 or a 4 or whatever, right? If I get you down to 4 cards and I have this, it's guaranteed lethal.
Yep.
If I don't have this and you have a thrash left, it's not, because I can't guarantee to win combat on the first interaction.
Yeah. As we saw in my game, if I would have had that combo, I would have had the confirmed lethal, but you were able to boost up and survive both of my big attacks.
So maybe there is something to be said. I wanted to get you down lower to like just force you to be a little more nervous, I think.
Yeah.
So that like you're like, okay, oh well, I can't kill Chad this turn, and so if he has all the cards,
I might die.
I would die. So maybe
right?
I have to back up,
yes,
right? Like
yes.
Versus you being at 10, right? Like you're like, okay, there's literally nothing to kill me, so I'm okay running and attacking here.
Yes, exactly.
So maybe there is something to be said for that.
Yep. And I mean, as you saw, you still had a win condition at the end, even though I was at 10. So I mean, Rex has to be careful. You have to take all of those things into consideration when you're determining like when to go in, when to back off, and how to play the tempo game. And it's not easy to do. By any means. But yeah, I think it's a very technical matchup, a lot more than people think. I don't think Rex stomps Bullseye at all. I think she's favored. Most fighters she's favored against, I think. But Bullseye can definitely put up a good fight, and it's a very volatile matchup either way. But also we did give Bullseye advantage, right? Partial advantage, at least with the position start, and a decent map. How do you think it would go on a different map that's maybe more in T-Rex favor, or if you flipped around the starting positions, how do you think that's going to impact it?
So I think if it's more T-Rex favored, I think we'll see probably what we saw the second game more often. Just because, if let's say rather than being as rash as maybe I was to my chagrin, here. If I move here or here wherever, it forces you 1, 2, 3, 4. So you have to boost with a 3, right? And yes, you have a lot of 3s, but they're like good cards, right? Like this is guaranteed to kill me. If you have to get rid of that, that's a bummer. You do have 4 of these, so these are your first to go. But I mean, you like attacking with them. you're obviously not boosting with this because you need defense and it's such a good card in this matchup. And then you have these, which you'd prefer to use.
Yep.
So, it's not like, so if I force you to have to boost with like a 3, I think it's pretty good for you. If I force you to have to boost with a 2, like on other maps, I think it doesn't matter too much.
Yeah.
I think you're totally fine boosting with the 2 because sometimes you could just boost with. You can either play closer than she appears after a different boost to get like 4 spaces, or if you just need to move 3 spaces, you can go ahead and boost with the card itself just to help you with movement in the same way.
Yep.
So I kind of always look at this card as just helping me move, whether it's a boost for 2 or an extra space for 1 with that card draw.
Right.
Unless, of course, you're in that great spot where you're 1 away, so you can use it and then
right. Open up a double.
Yeah. But anyway, so that said, I think any tighter maps are going to favor Rex way more so than they will, because I think Bullseye, I don't think Bullseye gains anything from closer quarters necessarily.
Now, with that said, though, obviously I think, again, most matchups with Rex at full advantage are going to be Rex favored, at least maybe slightly. But I think if Bullseye gets full advantage, I think it might actually be slightly in his favor. I mean, I don't know if people are going to argue that with me, I think. But I think it might be Bullseye favored. I guess the caveat is we saw both of our games we opened with Study the Target, right?
Yeah.
So, I guess if you don't happen to open up with that card in your starting hand, you're probably way worse off.
I think so.
So maybe that's the caveat. But I think Bullseye with full advantage and opens up Study the Target, he's probably favored. Because you can go, this map was pretty good, but as we said, Baskerville might be even better. Also, I think maybe a map like Hell's Kitchen that has some healing, because that healing token can give him a full extra turn to work with, a full extra attack, I should say. Which can be all the difference, right? Because sometimes you need to survive 1 more attack and then you can kill on the counter attack, but you don't have enough health to survive that last attack.
Yeah.
So I think that can make a difference, as well as him being able to use like +2 attack tokens or defense maybe. I think he can use the tokens better than Rex can, because Rex has to approach more. And with his free movement defenses, he can pop right into an item spot to use that item to attack with.
Yeah. I have played on Hell's Kitchen once, and it was a very, very close game. But you just gotta remember those tokens. Rex can use them with range because she can, just be super, far on there.
Yeah.
So it is. I do agree with you. But early game, you gotta play around those like crazy well. Because of where they can be located, and you also can't attack Rex turn 1.
That's true. You'd have to take a double maneuver and set up turn. But that might not be the worst thing, because
I think it's okay, right? You could double maneuver onto that first +2 token if you want. However, the other +2 token or +1 token is within range from Rex.
Sure.
Which is fine. You just cancel each other out, right? It doesn't, right?
Again,
or if you have the feint, might as well throw the feint.
Yeah, and it's all about damage, right? So if you take a double maneuver turn and Rex doesn't come attack you because she wants to load up on cards in hand, then you're perfectly fine with that, because you're not running her out of cards, you're running her out of potentially defenses and just hitting damage over the top and whatnot. So I don't think it's a big punish, and if Rex does approach you, well, then you start with an even bigger hand advantage than you would if you just straight up attacked first action turn 1. And then also digging 2 cards deeper into your deck makes it more likely that you'll find your scheme. So I don't think double maneuvering is actually the worst thing, especially if you can camp on an item that's going to buff up your defense in case Rex wants to come at you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I'd be interested to try that matchup on Hell's Kitchen specifically, or Baskerville, with Bullseye advantage, and see how that goes.
Same.
I think be pretty.
Worst case scenario, Ripple hits this. Like you draw into it on your second action or whatever.
Yeah, and then
because I feel like when you get this, if they have ripples left, you just have to win combat and you have to get those 3 card draws.
Yes.
I feel like.
This is literally the key card in pretty much all Bullseye matchups, but in this one more than the rest. You have to trigger this card as frequently as you can and as quickly as you can.
Yeah.
So as we saw in my game, I was way better off having triggered both of them than you were with only one. So.
And I do think that's kind of the difference, I guess, competitively up against Rex and Bullseye. Obviously, very different decks, very different like designs and stuff. But you know, she has a little bit extra range. She has a lot of cards she can boost with to move and attack 5 spaces away and such. But the reason I bring this up is because of her constant aggression and card draw. She's a very, very consistent fighter.
Yeah.
In terms of, as I mentioned, she's going to see most of her cards by the time she's, you know, either dead or has killed her opponent. Bullseye, I think, in the very same way, can out-aggress almost anyone. However, it is dependent upon these two schemes versus Rex is ability dependent.
Yeah.
So I do think there is something, right? I think that's why we haven't seen a lot of Bullseye in this recent tournament, is just because it does hinge on this. I personally agree that if you can guarantee to get this in your first, you know, 5 cards, or maybe see both of them before you're 10 cards into your deck, I think we'd see him a lot more competitively. I think he'd be really good and he'd have a lot more of a relevant spot in the meta.
Yeah.
But currently, just because he doesn't, you know, you just don't know if you're going to grab it, and he dies to like 5 attacks or 6 attacks to some people. You just can't afford it.
Yeah, not just that consistency issue with the scheme, but also Arsenal format in general is not kind to him, because if you pick Bullseye in your roster, you almost are just telegraphing that you're putting him on advantage, and so it lets them line up an easy counter pick matchup that
That's
like
right.
a fighter like Bigfoot or something that can handle him even when he's on advantage, right? And if you put him on disadvantage, then maybe you'll get a more favorable matchup, but you're on disadvantage, which is bad for Bullseye. So
Yeah.
I think he's definitely better in a format like Conquest, where he gets
Yeah.
full advantage and you know what you're going into as far as matchups go, because you picked him for a reason. You know,
Yeah.
he's a great counter pick fighter. But yeah, with that point on the consistency, I guess in general, I think it is T-Rex favored all around, even given like Bullseye on full advantage. But it's not heavily favored, I don't think, and I think most people expect it to be heavily Rex favored, but I don't think it is at all. So yeah, it's a fun matchup for sure.
I had a blast. I mean, game 1 was much more of a nail biter than this one.
Yeah.
This one was still fun.
Yeah.
Because this one was much more positionally challenging than the last one.
Yes.
Obviously, there was stuff of like me ending in your zone to threaten Thrash, because I hadn't seen any of my Thrashes. This one was more so like running away and stuff. So,
Yep.
I mean, tons of fun, but I don't know. I had a blast. These matchup of the month things are fun, even though, you know, last month was pretty oppressive. I still had fun with that one, and this one was fun too.
Yeah, it's just fun to really deep dive a matchup in particular and just figure out all the little ins and outs of it. So again, I just want to say thank you for joining me in this, and I'm happy to have you on and hope to have you on for more in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to help.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, and there you have it. It looks like T-Rex did walk away with the wins in our games, but that game 1 was incredibly close. So, again, I wouldn't write Bullseye off in this matchup so quickly. I think it's definitely T-Rex favored, as most matchups are once again, but I think Bullseye, again, he does have the tools to actually deal with T-Rex, so I don't think T-Rex is always going to win as much as people suspect. And it was a blast playing those games. I just think it's a really fun matchup, and I would highly recommend all of you to go try it out if you're a fan of either Bullseye or the T-Rex. It was just so much fun. So thanks again to Unmet Chad for playing with me. It's a blast as always, and I hope you guys enjoyed the video and are looking forward to more of these coming up in the future. And make sure you like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the channel if you aren't already, and consider supporting me on Patreon. And you can even cast your votes for future matchup of the month videos, and maybe get the matchup you would like to see featured in the next one. So check it out, but I just appreciate all the support from everybody, and I'm looking forward to more videos. So that's going to be it for me this time. Thanks again, everybody, for watching. I'm ZeroSkater12, and I'll see you next time.